You're a bad listener. Probably. Statistically. And the research shows that what people consider normal everyday listening is already significantly below what the person who's talking to you needs. The term active listening was coined in 1957 by a psychologist called Carl Rogers. Carl Rogers is the same person who built the foundation for modern talk therapy. And what he argued was that listening shouldn't, because it shouldn't be considered the passive part of the conversation. It's a skill. And it's a skill that most people overestimate how good they actually are at. And it's a skill that most people don't try and learn. So in this video, what listening actually is, what you're probably doing now and don't even realize it, and why it's the most important thing you can do in a conversation. My name is John. I'm studying psychotherapy and I love all this stuff. When someone talks to you, there's a voice that's always going on inside your head, and that voice is not listening. It's scanning, waiting for the next moment it can jump in, or the next moment it can relate, the next moment it can advise, or say, oh yeah, that happened to me too, or no, wait, what if you do this? Or at least it's not as bad as. But that's not listening. That's waiting for your turn. But the thing is, we've all been trained to think that this and listening are the same thing when it's really not. Because technically from the outside they do look identical. You're nodding, you seem in tune, you're agreeing, you're responding, you're making eye contact. But I promise you, the person who's talking to you can feel the difference. Even if they don't really know what that difference is, I promise they can feel it. Active listening has its roots deep in the work of Carl Rogers, the psychologist whose three core conditions became the very foundation of modern therapeutic practice. And I believe those same core conditions are just as essential when you're trying to listen to someone as they are in a therapy room. So the first is empathy. Empathy now, not sympathy, empathy. It's not I feel sorry for you, but it's a genuine attempt to understand the person's experience from inside their frame of reference, not yours. You're not translating what they're saying into your own experience, or trying to draw comparisons out loud. You're trying to stand inside their experience. The second is congruence or genuineness. You're not trying to perform the act of listening or nodding in strategic places. If you're confused, you have to say so. If you're affected by what they're saying, that's allowed to show. And that plays into the empathy side of things as well. The moment you try and put on or fake a listening face, the other person knows, even if they can't articulate or they don't know why they know, they can feel it. The third is unconditional positive regard, which doesn't mean having to agree with everything the other person is saying. It just means that the person speaking doesn't feel like they have to earn the right to be heard. It means they don't have to be reasonable or articulate or even calm for you to give them your full attention. In that moment, you're listening to the person and you're not trying to evaluate or judge the quality of their argument. A critical review published only this year by Gillian examined what happens to people when they're not listened to properly. Not ignored or not shouted at, just poorly listened to. And the findings really are striking. Even what researchers classified as normal or typical listening was already significantly worse than what people actually need. So low quality listening, or what we consider typical or normal listening, led to disempowerment. So the person talking felt like their point wasn't being heard or understood or valued. And over time, people who consistently felt like they weren't being heard stopped trying to express themselves altogether. And I'm not talking the person gets loud or gets angry or explodes or storms out of the room. They just stop bringing things up. And you might never notice because from the outside, the person looks fine or looks normal. Like, think about the last time someone actually listened to you, not advised you or not tried to teach you to do better or not relate your experience back by expressing theirs. Really listen to you. And the thing is, you probably can remember. You can remember the person who listened to you and the situation and the time because it's actually a rare experience nowadays. And it's rare enough to be memorable. And then think about how often you do that for someone else. And the thing that I hope you've noticed is they're both really infrequent situations. You see, everyone knows what it's like to being on the receiving end of good listening, but they don't do it nearly often enough for someone else. And almost nobody delivers it consistently. So in 2021, this was in the height of COVID, researchers ran a randomized clinical trial. And this has been published in like JAMA Psychiatry, I think it was, where trained people made regular empathy focused phone calls to adults during COVID. These weren't therapists or counselors. They were ordinary people trained in empathic listening. And over the course of the program, participants showed significant reductions in loneliness, depression, and anxiety because they were just listened to properly. And what's important here is the intervention wasn't medication and it wasn't therapy. It was just being listened to properly, consistently by someone who was taught how to listen. So this proves that what we're talking about now does have a positive impact on the world. And the world needs that at the moment. So most of what passes for listening falls into one of four actions. You have advising, relating, reassuring, and interrupting. And they all seem helpful from the listener's point of view, but they're actually doing damage to the person speaking. Like advising is saying, oh, well, you should do this when the person didn't ask to be advised. They asked to be listened to or to be heard. And then relating is, oh, yeah, that happened to me too. When you've just hijacked the conversation and made the person speaking's problem become yours. You've taken over. Reassuring is saying things like, oh, it'll be fine, or don't worry, or look on the bright side. You've just completely minimized the person's feelings and made them feel that their reaction to the situation they're trying to explain to you is an overreaction. That's actually damaging. And then interrupting is not always verbal. It you can interrupt someone with your body language as well, making hand gestures or eye movements to kind of signal that you're ready to speak now. And it can completely derail what the other person is trying to say. Now, none of these are malicious, but they're all very, very instinctive actions, and they all communicate the same thing to the person who's talking. What they say is, what I have to say next is more important than what you're saying now. So hurry up and finish talking. Do you know what I mean? So Rogers said something in 1957. It was a long time ago, but I think it's still very relevant today. He said, when people are listened to sensitively, they tend to listen to themselves then with more care and to make clear exactly what they're feeling and thinking. And what this is saying is the act of being heard doesn't just help the speaker feel better, it helps them think better. So you're not just receiving information. You're giving the person a chance and room to understand their own experience. Maybe even for the first time. There's a term in psychotherapy and it's called holding space. And that's exactly what you're doing here. So what can actually help you become a better listener? Here are three of the main things I'd advise you to do. So the first thing is to pause before you say something. So not a very long deliberate pause, just one or two breaths. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to check if what you're about to say is for you or for them. So if it's for you, like the advice or the anecdote or a story about your own past, fair enough, thinking that you're trying to relate to them, hold it in. But if it's actually for them, say it. Simple things like, "Oh, that must have been so difficult," or I can see why you feel like this." You're acknowledging their feelings without pulling it back to you. And this leads us into the second one, which is reflect, don't redirect. So instead of something like, "Oh, that happened to me too," say something like, "Oh, that sounds like it was very difficult." You see, by saying things like that, you're not adding to what the other person is saying. All you're doing is you're subtly acknowledging their feelings and letting the other person know that what they just said landed with you. And in a conversation, that's far more powerful than any advice you could give. Understand that if the person is looking for advice, they're probably just going to ask you for your opinion or advice on a situation. And the third thing is to learn to tolerate the silence and understand the power of silence in a conversation. And it's a big thing. It's a tool in therapy as well, because what silence does is it allows the person who is just talking to think about what they just said. And the epiphany that you're waiting for them to have might happen in that exact moment. Now, it can be a little bit awkward, and not everybody can tolerate silence. But I think what you'll find is if you don't jump in and start talking, trying to fill the silence as soon as the other person has finished talking, what you'll find is the person is going to start talking again. And it's going to be one layer deeper of conversation. Like that pause, that silence, probably more often than not, is the moment the most important thing that person is about to say is forming in their head. And if you fill that silence, that thing will never be said. Carl Rogers spent his entire career advocating and arguing that listening is the most potent tool we have for helping someone else change and grow and understand themselves better. So this is not advising someone on how to do better. And it's not diagnosing, it's not trying to fix or fixing. Listening. Like I'm learning this professionally, how to do this professionally. It's literally part of the curriculum. And the interesting thing about it is it's not how hard it is to do the good things. It's how hard it is to stop doing what are technically considered the bad things in this. Trying to advise and trying to fix in the moment. Like in the moment, they're very instinctual and they feel like they're helping. They make you feel like you're helping. But when really they're not. And unlearning those things is genuinely difficult. But it is exactly what will make you like a good listener is too weak a term. Like a powerful listener, where you can genuinely help people get through really, really dark moments in their life or really critical moments in their life simply by listening properly, holding the space. The power of listening. But then as it goes on, I'm getting it right more often. And it is a different experience. I promise it's a very, very different experience to what you're used to. And it's different for you, the listener. And it's definitely different for the person talking. Like, I genuinely could feel the difference. And so could they. And you're not trying to change in one day or get it right the whole time from now on. But the next conversation you have, do one simple thing. Try not to prepare the next thing you're going to say in your head while the other person is talking. And you'd be surprised at how uncomfortable that can be, because it can make you seem less prepared. But I promise that's not how it's going to come across. You good listener, Just listen and see what happens. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. There's plenty more content like this on the way and in the channel. I would really appreciate it.